So what if our whole understanding of consciousness is, well, just wrong? Seriously, what if the silent mind isn't empty at all, but is actually operating on a level that our current science is completely unequipped to even measure? We're going to dive into this really provocative idea and explore a totally new way of looking at the silent mind. You know, this quote really hits the nail on the head for what we're talking about today. We're about to challenge some very, very comfortable certainties about the brain, about intelligence, and about what it really means to communicate.
All right, so where does the problem even begin? It all starts with what the source material calls the materialist cage, and that's basically the scientific box we've accidentally built for ourselves.
And this image of a brain in a cage, it's the perfect way to visualize the problem. It represents this core assumption that the physical brain produces consciousness, kind of like a factory churns out a product. In that model, the only way we can measure intelligence is by what the factory puts out, verbal language. The argument here is that this model is just way too brittle to even begin to understand the mind of someone who doesn't speak.
Okay, so if you're stuck in a cage, how do you break out? Well, the source presents what it calls a hoard of truth, a really powerful chain of evidence that's designed to completely shatter this old way of thinking. Let's see how that chain is put together. This whole new perspective is built on three main pillars of evidence. First up, we've got the energetic precondition, then the symbiotic connection, and finally, the unleashed architecture. Let's break each one of these down.
The very first link in this chain just reframes everything. It suggests that the non-speaking mind naturally operates in these deep alpha and theta brainwave states. Now, think about it this way. People who practice deep meditation work for years to get to this state of mind. It's a state of pure, receptive stillness, totally free from all that constant mental chatter. So from this point of view, these individuals aren't deficient at all. Their minds are simply amplified for a different, much more intuitive kind of thinking.
Next up is the symbiotic connection. This is where we look at those stories you sometimes hear about so-called mind reading. Instead of just dismissing them, it proposes something called metasensory transfer. The idea is that a highly sensitive mind, already in that theta state, can achieve this incredible synchrony with a caregiver. This lets them process the caregiver's emotional energy, what yogic traditions call prana, or life force, and maybe even their thoughts. It's not presented as magic, but as a truly profound form of human connection.
And the final link in the chain is savant skills. These incredible abilities prove that a deep, language-independent genius is absolutely real. The theory here is that non-speakers, because they're free from the limits of verbal processing, think through something called superior pattern processing. Their thoughts are like pure geometry, a complete data file. And the struggle comes when they have to try and translate that instant, complete thought into the much, much slower, step-by-step format of spoken language. So their inability to speak isn't a lack of intelligence, it's actually the price they pay for their incredible cognitive clarity.
Okay, so if the old tools and rules just don't work, what's the solution? The source material proposes something huge, a new scientific mandate, a completely new set of rules for how we do the research itself. This slide really gets to the heart of the whole shift. The old way of thinking says the brain produces consciousness, so we test the isolated person. The new mandate completely flips that on its head. It starts with the idea that the brain receives consciousness from a fundamental field, kind of like a radio receives a broadcast signal. And if that's the case, you don't test the radio itself. You test the connection, the energetic field between people.
And this mandate breaks down into three real actionable steps. First, adopt a post-materialist premise, where consciousness is seen as fundamental to the universe. Second, we have to design experiments that can actually measure the energetic field between a non-speaker and their communication partner. Imagine looking for synchronized brainwaves between them. And third, we need to value different kinds of data. This means putting together teams that include not just neuroscientists, but also experts in things like yogic philosophy and savant syndrome to get a much more complete picture.
Now, adopting this new framework isn't just some academic exercise. The source argues it has profound real-world consequences. We're talking about unlocking a massive, untapped resource of intellect that could benefit all of society.
I mean, the practical benefits here are immense. It means totally revolutionizing education by funding new communication methods like supported typing. It means we start recognizing savant skills as incredibly valuable professional assets. We could be actively integrating these brilliant pattern processors into fields like architecture, coding, and complex data analysis, places where their unique way of thinking would give them a serious competitive edge.
But the goal is even bigger than that.
It's about trying to achieve what the Source calls a sattvic society. In yogic philosophy, sattva is this quality of purity, clarity, and harmony. The idea is that our current society is often driven by rajaguna, this restless, competitive energy, and held back by tamaguna, which is the inertia of old, unexamined ideas. Embracing this new perspective could help us all move toward a more balanced and harmonious way of life.
You see, by learning to listen to this quiet, intuitive, and inwardly focused voice, we give all of humanity an anchor. It's a constant reminder that this deep awareness exists right when the noise of the ego is silenced. This isn't just about helping one community. It's really about expanding the potential of every single one of us. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important part of this whole explainer. It's a challenge, one that turns all these ideas into real action. So really think about this for a second. Maybe it's a school policy that bans assisted communication, or a workplace rule that demands everyone go through a verbal interview. Based on everything we've just explored, what is the one single rule you would choose to rewrite to unlock this flow of genius? That's the question we're left with. And turning that thought into reality, well, that's the first step.